This is Marie from Underground Crafter, and in today's video I'm going to share how to make the treble X stitch, which is this stitch pattern right here. It makes a really nice and lacy open stitch. It's a combination of treble crochets and chains. So let's get started. Thanks to Hirschner's and Denise Interchangeable Crochet Hooks for providing supplies for today's video. So I prefer to start on a base row of single crochet just because this stitch is so lacy and I want to give it a little bit of structure, but that isn't required. You're going to need, for whether it's your chain or your first row, you're going to need a multiple of 3, so 3 for each of the treble X stitches, plus 2, 1 for each end. I'm starting with 14 here just as a sample. So first I'm going to chain 1, so yarn over and draw through the loop, that's a chain, and then I'm going to do a treble crochet. So I'm going to yarn over twice, 1, 2. You don't want to make those too tight if you're not used to treble crochets. They can be a little bit difficult if you make them too tight to get all your loops through. Then you're going to insert your hook into the very first stitch. So you'll have the stitch that you put your hook into plus 3 loops, so 4 loops altogether. Then you're going to yarn over and draw through 1 loop. You'll have 4 loops again. Then you're going to yarn over and draw through 2 loops 3 times. So yarn over, draw through 2 loops. That was 1. Yarn over, draw through 2 loops. That was 2. And yarn over and draw through 2 loops. That was 3. I prefer this approach, but if you don't like to, you can also chain 4 as the first treble crochet at the start of the row. Okay, now we're going to work our treble X stitch across these next 3 stitches. What we're going to do is skip the first 2 stitches, and then we're going to treble into the 3rd stitch. So we're going to yarn over twice again, skip 2, insert our hook into the 3rd stitch. Again, we're going to have the 4 loops. We're going to yarn over and draw through 1 loop. Still going to have 4 loops. We're going to yarn over and draw through 2, and we're going to repeat that until all of our loops are off the hook. That was our first treble for the X stitch. Now we're going to chain 1, so yarn over and draw through a loop. And now we're going to go back to that first stitch we skipped and treble in there. So yarn over twice, insert your hook into the first skip stitch. So your hook will be coming out the back and you'll be crossing over on the front. You're going to yarn over and draw up a loop. Bring it up nice and high, just like the other stitch, even though you're working into a stitch a little further back. Then yarn over and pull through 2 loops all the way through, so that'll be 3 times. Okay, so you can see we have a treble at the start and then this crossed treble X stitch next. We're going to repeat that all the way across in every set of 3 stitches. So here's a tip. It can be really easy to think that this is a stitch you haven't already worked in if you're just kind of looking at it from the top. So what I like to do is I actually touch the treble to make sure I know which stitch I worked it into last, so that I know that this is the next 3 stitches. So I'm going to skip the first 2 of those 3 stitches, then I'm going to yarn over twice and I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch, so the 3rd of the next 3 stitches. I'm going to yarn over and draw up a loop, and then yarn over and draw through 2 loops 3 times. So that's my treble crochet. So again, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to treble crochet again, but it's going to be back in this first skipped stitch. So this stitch is very similar to a lot of other cross stitches, except what it does, instead of just being 2 stitches where you're skipping 1 and working into the next stitch, it's 3. And so to keep your stitch count the same so that you're not decreasing or increasing, that's why you're chaining 1 in the middle. So let's try it again. So again, I'm making sure this is the last one I worked a stitch in. So now I'm looking at these next 3. So I'm going to yarn over twice. I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches. and then I'm going to insert my hook into the third stitch. I'm going to yarn over and draw up a loop, and then yarn over and draw through 2 loops 3 times. So that's my treble. Then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to yarn over twice again, and I'm going to treble in that first skipped stitch, working over the stitch that I just made. And again, just a reminder that especially on that first loop that you draw through, you'll want to pull up the yarn nice and high so that your stitches keep that nice height and that nice drape. Okay, so in our next 3 stitches, we're going to do that again. So again, we're going to treble, we're going to skip 2, treble into the third, yarn over and draw up a loop, and yarn over and draw through 2 loops 3 times. That's our treble. Then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to treble into the first of those 2 skipped stitches. Okay, so now we should be at our last stitch, and just like at the start, we're going to end with just 1 treble. So yarn over twice, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and draw up a loop, and then yarn over through 2 loops 3 times. So this is 1 row, and you have a couple of different options depending on what you want the finished fabric to look like. You can actually keep repeating that exact same pattern every row. So you can you can turn and then chain 1 and treble crochet in the first stitch, and then you can work your cross stitches over each other all the way across your X stitches. What'll happen if you do that? Let's show how to look. So I'm gonna try that. I'm chaining 1, then I'm gonna work a treble into the first stitch, and then across these next 3 treble X stitches, I'm gonna repeat a treble X stitch. So I'm gonna skip the first treble and the chain 1 space and insert my hook into the next treble, and that's where I'm going to make my treble stitch. And then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to treble in the skip stitch, and I can again repeat those treble X stitches all the way across. And remember, we're going to end with just 1 treble crochet into the last stitch. So this is what it looks like if you decide to do the treble X stitch every row. You'll find that you're crossing in different directions as you go back and forth. Another alternative, if you'd like a more solid fabric, or if you just want all of the stitches to cross in the same direction, is to do a row of single crochet in between. So in that case, you would just chain 1 and single crochet in the first stitch, and then you would work a single crochet into the next stitch, a single crochet into the chain 1 space, and a single crochet into the next stitch for each of those treble X stitches. So basically making a single crochet into every stitch and chain 1 space across. And so I'm going to do that and then show you what it looks like. And then when you get to the last stitch, you're going to single crochet there as well. So you can see, because the height is so relatively short of the single crochet, it doesn't actually have a huge visual impact. So it still looks pretty lacy, but what'll happen is that your next row because you have the single crochet in the middle, the X will fall into the same direction. So if that's a look you prefer, that's another way to combine it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Have a great day.